welcome back to another episode of Becoming the Product. I'm your host, Naya, and I hope your day is going fine. First of all, I hope that everything is going well in your work, in your life. And in today's episode, I wanted to talk about my first 30 days as a growth manager at a startup. So if you're new here, welcome. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for tuning in. This podcast started as a way for me to share my experiences while transitioning. And I also put a challenge to myself at the end that I was going to land my first job in 6 months' time. And that podcast season one ended March, and I got this job in April. The application process, I'll talk about it in another episode, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. There was the application stage where we sent in videos and some tasks that we're meant to do, after which, if you were successful, then you have a follow-up interview. So it was kind of within my, would I say, wheelhouse, because I have done similar kinds of applications before, so it wasn't as hard as I thought. And I got the job after my follow-up interview, and we talked about roles, responsibilities, and all of that. So just to give a brief history as to what the company does, the company is called Protomated. It's a startup based in Nigeria here, Lagos, Nigeria here. And as of this recording, we aren't live yet outside. So I'm not going to share too much until we come out in public and you can see more of it on my social media handles. But basically, we offer two services. The first one is business automation solutions for professional firms like HR, accountants, and all that. And the second would be building micro SaaS applications for people who maybe have an idea and need help fleshing it out. So for solo entrepreneurs and all that. So those are the two major services that this company offers. And me as a growth manager, what I do there are centered around three major roles. So it's project management, it's operations management, and it's customer interactions. So I'll break it down a bit. For customer interactions, I am the first level of contact with the customer. So if you're coming in, it's my voice you're going to hear first. It's me that will interact with you, kind of understand what's happening. If you have questions, if you need follow-ups, I'm your guy. Then when you come to operations management, I help or managing the operations, day-to-day operations, managing the team. It's also in my job description. And the last one is project management. So because of the kind of services we offer, we'll always have multiple projects running at the same time. So one of my roles and responsibilities is to ensure that the projects are done within their timeline, everything goes well, it's done within budget and all that. So now that we have a little bit of a backstory, now into the main topic of today, 30 days. So it's been, I don't even know how to explain it. It's been everything. That's what I can say. There's been highs, there's been lows, there's been very bad lows, there's been sweet things, and I honestly can't give you an adjective to really explain how my first 30 days have gone. But it kind of opened my eyes to like, okay, this was what I actually wanted. So if I tell you were in my tight circle a few months back, whenever they asked, or even if you look at my why statements of why I chose product management, you will notice that when I worked in the bank, it was about me selling products or services that already existed. And sometimes you don't really take into consideration what the customer needs because you're trying to sell a product. You have targets that you need to push out. So you just push out anything. And I've always wanted to be in a situation whereby I'm actually interacting with customers, understanding where they're coming from, and building the projects or the products right from the start. And at Protomated, I get to do that. So it's like a dream come true. I wanted to work in a startup so I could learn, especially as my first role as a PM. I wanted to learn everything and to start from the company from like the beginning right now. Like it's crazy to think that I actually achieved that goal. So yes, my first 30 days, the first 2 weeks was majorly on onboarding and training. I had a lot of things to do regards the softwares we use, so I needed to catch up on that. I had a little bit of training to do. I had a course I needed to do. So it took me about 7 to 10 days to get all that trashed out. And I also spent a lot of time learning about the company, knowing its mission, knowing its vision, understanding the DNA basically, because it sets the tone for how I'm gonna be able to work in this company. I also familiarize myself with the products, the services, everything, try to understand the target audience because part of my role was to interface with customers. So I wanted that even if you wake me up from my sleep, I could tell you or I could sell the company to you. So I spent the first 2 weeks focusing on that. Then the next 2 weeks was handling some of my first major tasks, if that's the word. And the first one was user research. Now this was when this was when everything started to feel like, okay, are you sure you're supposed to be here? That imposter syndrome. So my first task was user research, which I've done multiple times, especially during my boot camps and courses. But 90% of those ones were surveys. Even if I interviewed people, I wasn't it was maybe people in my class or family members, family friends, people on social media that at least we had one or two interactions with before. But with this company, we weren't too focused on surveys. In fact, it's 90% user interactions, personal outreaches. So that was hard for me. Have that rapport with you, first of all, before I now start asking you questions. But in this case, you need to do the rapport, the questions within a very short period of time. So it took me a while to really get to understand exactly what I needed to do. In fact, the first one, to me, I failed it because I didn't get the insights required for that project to move along. And it really hit me. That period, that week wasn't fun for me. I know the struggles I went through. I was even looking for courses that would teach me how to interact better with customers, how to have that interview with strangers, kind of. So I'm still a work in progress. I won't say that I have perfected the skill, but my second task with that was a lot better because now that I knew what was expected of me, I put in a little bit more. I did a little bit more research, tried to implement all the things I was learning on my journey. And it's been a fun ride. It's been a fun ride. So, to also help to ensure that my 30 days was a success, there are lots of resources online regarding your first 30 days, your first 60 days, your first 90 days. And I was following a lot of people, but the one that really stood out to me, the one that really helped me, was the one by Valentine Eke. Now, Valentine was my first guest, and the episode launched last week, so you need to go and listen to it if you haven't listened to it. It has a lot of resources, especially on his Substack. If you're on my newsletter, you would have gotten a link to that so that you can have access to him as well. And the resource he shared on the first 30 days, the first 60 days, the first 90 days is what I use to ensure that I am successful, kind of. So for the first 30 days, it's all about laying the foundation, ensuring that everybody's on the right page, you know what is expected of you, and all that. And there were 5 major strategies that he pointed out. The first one was ensuring that you align on managers' expectations. Second one is understanding the company. Third one is meeting your stakeholders. Fourth one is meeting your team. And the fifth one is identifying quick wins. So if you look at it and compare to how my first 30 day was, on the first one, which was aligning on managers' expectations, I had weekly meetings with my supervisor, like my boss, kind of, and we discussed issues, blockage, anything you needed help with, anything. He talked about expectations for the week, if it was met, and all that. So that meeting helps with feedback. It also helps to ensure that we're all on the same page. It also helps with the focus of the team, kind of. The second strategy, which was understanding the company, which was what I did for the first 2 weeks during the onboarding process. Really understand the mission, the vision, everything. Read up on the services, the products, the target audience. That was what I did. So yes, this was also checked. Meeting stakeholders. Now this was kind of tricky because, like I said, the company wasn't launched as at when I recorded this video and I started my first 30 days. So I didn't do that. So I just focused on understanding potential stakeholders and understanding how our products or services will match to them. The fourth strategy was meeting my team. So when I first came in, one of my other tasks that I did was actually to help source for team members. So I shared in my network, I shared in communities I was in, and people who responded back were interviewed and all that. So when I got there, my team was still being built, if that makes sense. So I was meeting as they come. So yes, I did meet my team, but it was as they came in, we'll discuss, we'll understand expectations and all that. And the last strategy was identifying quick wins. Now, this quick wins really helps with imposter syndrome, especially on days where you're like, am I supposed to be here? It doesn't matter how small it is. So for me, I mentioned that the user research was kind of hard for me initially. But the second time around when I was doing it, it was a lot easier for me. That was my quick win, kind of one of my quick wins, because I felt more comfortable. I achieved a little bit more the second time around as opposed to the first time around. So yeah, my first 30 days was everything. It was good, it was bad. There were some days that was challenging, and but this was why I chose this company. This was why I wanted this role, because I wanted to really learn and understand things from that point of view, from the startup point of view, from the beginning point of view. I don't know if I'm making sense, but that was my goal, and I am happy that I achieved that because I've been learning a lot. I've been really into everything, trying to do the tasks, even some tasks that aren't mine. I kind of put my head into it so that I understand where they're coming from, and it just kind of helps me to be a little bit more well rounded, if that makes sense. So, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for coming up here. I'm super excited about what is to come. I'm eager to share more about this journey. So, I'll talk more about working in a startup. I'll talk more about my application process. I'll also talk more about my first 60 days, my first 90 days. All that will come up in upcoming episodes. So, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss out the episodes. And I do have a newsletter now. Yes, I created a newsletter for our community. It gives you more resources. It gives you show notes. It gives you so much extra than what you get from the podcast now or from my social media handle. So you really need to be there. You can always subscribe at my website, becomingtheproduct.simple.inc. As always, you can always send me feedback either on social media or on the website. I have a tab there that is sharing your story. If you want me to talk about your story online, if you want me to hear your voice, you can send a voice message